In the photo, Heinrich Müller, the head of the Gestapo, was one of the key perpetrators of the Nazi terror. He led mass arrests, torture, and the destruction of anti-fascist resistance and persecuted communists, socialists, clergy, and anyone whom the Nazis considered enemies. Müller played an important role in the realization of the Holocaust, coordinating with Adolf Eichmann and ensuring the deportation of millions of Jews to death camps. In the last days of the war, he was in Hitler's bunker and then disappeared. Despite numerous rumors from fleeing to South America to serving in the special services of the USSR or the USA, his fate remained unknown. In 2013, evidence emerged that his body had been found and buried in Berlin in 1945. Do you believe it, or was he able to escape?
Aribert Heim, nicknamed Dr. Death, was one of the most cruel Nazi doctors. In the Mauthausen concentration camp, he conducted horrific experiments on prisoners. He performed operations without anesthesia, injected gasoline and poison directly into the heart to observe how quickly death occurred. He carefully recorded everything in his medical records. After the war, Heim escaped punishment. He was released after a brief arrest, and he worked quietly as a doctor in Germany for more than 15 years. In 1962, he disappeared and lived under the name Tariq Farid Hussein in Egypt, where he converted to Islam. Only in 2009 did it become known that he had died in Cairo back in 1992. In 2012, Germany officially closed the case.
In the photo, Lasso Chitauri is one of the most famous Nazi criminals who escaped punishment. In 1944, as a Hungarian police officer, he oversaw the Košice ghetto and personally participated in the deportation and abuse of Jews. According to the Simon Wiesenthal Center, he was involved in the deaths of more than 15,000 people using torture, bullying, and physical violence. After the war, he fled to Canada under a false name, where he lived a great life. It was only in 1997 that he was stripped of his citizenship and hid in Hungary. In 2012, he was detained, and in 2013, he was charged with complicity in mass murder. A Slovak court commuted his death sentence to life in prison, but Chitauri died in prison in Budapest from pneumonia without being sentenced.
Klaus Karl Faber, one of the most wanted Nazi criminals of the 20th century, remained unpunished until his death. Born in the Netherlands in 1922 to a family of convinced Nazis, he joined the Waffen-SS and participated in punitive operations against the Dutch resistance. He commanded a firing squad at Westerbork, the transit camp through which Anne Frank passed. Sentenced to death in 1947, he later received a life sentence, but in 1952 he escaped from prison to Germany, where he obtained citizenship and lived freely. Despite numerous extradition requests and international pressure, Germany refused to extradite Faber. He died in 2012 at the age of 90 in Ingolstadt, having never received the punishment he deserved.
In the photo, Karl Josef Silverbower is an Austrian policeman and senior SS sergeant who served in occupied Amsterdam under the command of Adolf Eichmann, responsible for the extermination of Jews. On August 4, 1944, Silverbower led a Gestapo raid on the Frank family's secret hideout and arrested Anne Frank, her relatives, and associates. After the war, he worked as a secret agent in the German intelligence service and then served again in the Vienna police. It was not until 1963 that Simon Wiesenthal identified him. Despite admitting his involvement in the arrest, he was not punished. Otto Frank, Anna's father, said that Silverbower was only following orders, but did not want to see him again. Silverbower died in 1972.
In the photo, Walter Rauff is an SS colonel. It was he who led the group that created gas vans, mobile death chambers where people were killed by exhaust fumes. These machines were used throughout Eastern Europe and became the instrument of the deaths of tens of thousands. According to U.S. intelligence, Rauff is responsible for about 90,000 lives. After the war, he was captured by the Americans, but escaped, taking refuge first in the Vatican, then in Syria, and later in Chile. Paradoxically, from 1958 to 1962, Rauff collaborated with the West German intelligence service BND, received money, and was formally listed as the head of a cannery in Santiago. In 1962, Germany secured his arrest, but the Chilean Supreme Court refused to extradite him, citing the statute of limitations. Until his death in 1984, Rauff lived openly, avoiding justice. His funeral was attended by thousands of former Nazis who honored him as a hero, not as a criminal.
In the photo, Herman Stave is a German anatomist who became famous for his research on the effects of stress on the female reproductive system. During the Nazi regime, he obtained the bodies of executed women from Plötzensee prison and performed autopsies for scientific publications. Stave collected information about the menstrual cycles of prisoners, studied the effect of fear of execution on ovulation, without thinking about the morality of his actions. Immediately after the execution, he removed the pelvic organs for analysis and then cremated the bodies, depriving relatives of the right to burial. He personally urged the prison authorities to carry out executions during the day for the sake of freshness of the material. He has published more than 200 works based on the bodies of 182 victims, most of whom were political prisoners. After the war, Stave was not convicted. His research continued to be used, and he himself headed the Institute of Anatomy in Berlin until his death in 1952. His involvement in the crimes of Nazism is still highly controversial. What do you think about this?
Waffen-SS Colonel Yawwakim Piper became famous on the fronts of World War II as one of the youngest and most brutal officers of Nazi Germany, awarded the Knight's Cross for bravery in battle. However, his name went down in history not for exploits, but for a barbaric crime: the massacre in Malmedy, where his subordinates shot 84 American prisoners. After the war, Piper found himself in the dock. He was found guilty, sentenced to death, but due to protests in Germany and accusations of cruel interrogation methods, the sentence was commuted to life. After serving less than 12 years, Piper was released and tried to get lost in the French countryside. But his past caught up with him. On July 14, 1976, on Bastille Day, Piper's house was set on fire, and he himself was shot dead. The neighbors refused to accept that a war criminal was hiding on their land. Thus ended the life of the hero of the SS, who did not wait for the second trial but did not escape the reckoning. In the photo, Heinz Lammerding was a brigadier general of the Waffen-SS and commander of the SS Panzer Division Reich, which was in central France on D-Day on June 6, 1944. In response to attacks by the French resistance after the Allied invasion, Lammerding ordered punitive measures. In July, more than 200 civilians were hanged or deported to Germany to die, and in Oradour, the SS massacred more than 600 people, after which the city was partially destroyed. Subsequently, by order of Charles de Gaulle, the ruins of Oradour were preserved as a memorial to Nazi crimes. Lammerding was convicted in absentia in 1953 of war crimes, but extradition was refused. After the war, he went into business in Dusseldorf and died of cancer in 1971. In the photo, Karl Wolff is a general of the Waffen SS and a close associate of Heinrich Himmler, who served as his chief of staff for several years. He did not just know about the mass killings of Jews, he was personally present at the executions on the Eastern Front and coordinated the most important aspects of the implementation of the Holocaust. Later, he was transferred to Italy, where he became the head of all the SS and Wehrmacht troops. It was under his supervision that the deportations of Italian Jews to death camps began. However, after the war, Wolff escaped severe punishment. He cooperated with the Americans by providing information against other Nazis and eventually received only 4 years in prison. In 1964, he was arrested again and convicted of mass deportations, but even the 15-year sentence was reduced to 5 years for medical reasons. Released early, he lived until 1984, remaining a symbol of how some Nazis evaded justice. In this photo, Kurt Franz is an SS officer and one of the first participants in the Nazi euthanasia program T4. Later, he was assigned to death camps, first in Belzec and then in Treblinka, where he was engaged in unloading vehicles and the extermination process. In 1943, Franz was promoted to camp commandant. Despite his childish face, he was nicknamed the Doll, and his cruelty knew no bounds. He set his Saint Bernard on prisoners and laughed as he shot those who survived the dog attack. In 1959, when he was arrested, a photo album from Treblinka called The Wonderful Years was found in his house. In 1965, Franz was found guilty of murdering more than 300,000 people, but was released for health reasons. He died at the age of 84 as a free man in Wuppertal, Germany. What do you think about this?